Good evening. I declare the Ordinary Council meeting of the 16th of December 2025 held in Council Chambers at Level 2, 388 Hayes Street, Subiaco, open at 5:34 p.m. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the City of Subiaco, I acknowledge the Whadjuk Noongar people as the traditional custodians of this land, and I recognise their ongoing connection to this land. I'll take attendances now, and I see 8 councillors and a mayor present in person. Good evening to you all. Now, we do have one member of the executive leadership team dialling in electronically. That's the Director, Business Improvement. The CEO is joined by 2 of his regular directors, Director Technical Services and Director Corporate Services, and we've got an Acting Director Development Services, Anthony Denham, filling in for Alex Petrovsky. Good evening to you all and to the other staff in the room also. Okay, we've got a leave of absence request for Councillor Bridget Pine, seeking leave of absence for the period from the 3rd of June 2026 to the 28th of June 2026 inclusive. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Jones, thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Johnston, thank you. Okay, I'll put that to the vote now. Excellent. The leave's approved unanimously. Okay, councillors, are there any disclosures of interest this evening? Doesn't look like it. Okay, there were no public questions previously taken on notice, but we do have several public questions all submitted in relation to the matter of the proposed redevelopment of the Civic Precinct at 241 Rockaby Road. Okay, first up, Jackie Greenshields of Salisbury Street, Subiaco. Ms Greenshields.
Dear Mayor, Councillors, CEO and staff. Rankin Gardens is not an ordinary garden. Through the Clock Tower War Memorial, the heritage plaques, the ceremonial plantings, the memory tree for private elderly, and the ginkgo biloba tree planted on the International Day of Peace in 2021, the garden has long been understood by the community as a place held in trust for reflection and remembrance. Australian local government and heritage practice consistently advise the activities within the commemorative setting and landscape associated with a war memorial should be compatible with its commemorative purpose. Transforming Rankin Gardens into a major events lawn with amplified sound, food trucks and commercial activity represents a fundamental shift away from that long-standing, community-understood use. Question 1. As the community has used Rankin Gardens as a reflective and commemorative space for generations, guided by its heritage features and ceremonial plantings, how does Council reconcile this century-long pattern of use with the proposed introduction of amplified music, commercial activities and major events which fundamentally change the garden's character without explicit community endorsement, risking the public trust and conveying the perceptions that decisions are being made above the community rather than on its behalf?
Thank you. We'll probably take the questions one at a time because they're quite detailed. I will ask the Director of Corporate Services to answer the majority of questions this evening as the executive sponsor of the project. Ms Wollaston.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks for your question through you, presiding member. So where we're at the moment is we have an initial concept design, and so that as a starting point has been based on the design team's interpretation of the city's design brief, which has been based on multiple prior community consultations. So as you point out, Rankin Gardens has evolved over time and been used for a variety of purposes for over 100 years, most certainly and notably for quiet reflection amongst other things. It's also been a bowling green, and music for some years had a bandstand with regular performances. The design brief was based on a number of principles which design teams of architects tendering for the project were free to interpret. Those principles included things like preserving and enhancing the urban canopy, reflecting the future of Subiaco, including its past and future, and providing a welcoming and revitalised precinct for the benefit of the community. With regards to Rankin Gardens, it describes, the design brief describes space for passive recreation and small-scale events while respecting the history of the site. Such small-scale events could include things like civic and memorial activities such as Anzac Day and Remembrance Day, and our community engagement plans include discussions with local RSLs to further inform the design. So now that we have selected a design team with the assistance of an expert jury, the design team, along with us, are very keen to hear how the community wishes to use Rankin Gardens now and into the future. That is, we are currently undertaking the community consultation regarding the civic building and landscape, including Rankin Gardens that you refer to. It's a very desirable thing. We have provided the design team's initial interpretation in order to give the community something to respond to, and through the consultation process, we're receiving a lot of feedback for the council to consider in its future decisions. Some feedback themes are strongly aligned and some feedback is more diverse. So we'd encourage everyone to have their say about the future of what is no doubt a special place.
Thank you. Ms Greenshields, your question 2.
Dear Mayor, Councillor, staff and CEO, Council has stated the Civic Precinct design brief was informed by a series of engagement touch points, including the community scorecard, the council plan and the 2021 social infrastructure plan. These documents are high level and strategic in nature and did not ask the community about nor seek endorsement for the introduction of festival scale events, amplified music or commercial activity within Rankin Gardens. As such, a fundamental change of use appears to have been embedded into the design process without any location-specific consultation on Rankin Gardens itself. My question is, given that permanently designating Rankin Gardens as a festival lawn for, quote, major community events represents a substantial departure from its long-established commemorative and reflective character. So will Council commit to undertaking targeted, location-specific consultation, including a dedicated community workshop and a Rankin Gardens-specific survey before progressing this concept?
Thank you. Director Corporate Services.
Thank you for your question, and through you, presiding member. So more detailed consultation on specific aspects of the design has certainly been envisaged as part of the current phase of the project. We've not wanted to preempt which aspects would be suitable for further consultation until the current consultation is closed, being fairly broad and seeking feedback on the concept overall. The current stage of consultation will give us a better understanding of which aspects of the design may need more input, and we certainly are already receiving a lot of feedback around Rankin Gardens, which we're all keen to take on board into the initial design. It's important to note that the size of the lawn area at Rankin Gardens is 1,500 square metres, and so that really limits the type of activities that may be held to around 400 people maximum, and it eliminates the ability to hold large-scale commercial events. For example, Market Square, being 20,000 square metres gifted to the state over 100 years ago for the purpose of markets, accommodates 3,500 to 5,000 people for the Saturday night supermarket. So it simply wouldn't be possible to do something of that scale.
Thank you. The next 2 questions come from Andrea Hawkes of Francis Street, Subiaco. Ms Hawkes.
Mayor, councillors, staff. The city's concept plans for the new civic building and gardens include a plan to replace the Rose Garden in Rankin Gardens with a festival lawn for major community events with a stage lighting, quote, plenty of terrace seating, unquote, and concrete paving all around for food trucks and the like. These events are likely to involve amplified music and crowds of people crammed into a relatively small space. My question is, why does the city consider it appropriate to create this outdoor event space immediately behind the Fallen Soldiers War Memorial?
Thanks for the question. I might take this one, actually. Ms Hawkes, the city's official answer would be the following. As per the answer to the previous submitter, the current concept design is an initial design response to the city's design brief, which was principles-based. It is not set in stone, but rather it is out for community feedback, and we are keen to hear from as many people as possible as to what they would like to see in Rankin Gardens in future. I will supplement that with a personal answer, if I may. I've got a background in the Navy Reserve. I've completed recruit training at HMAS Cerberus. I've completed officer training at Naval College, HMAS Creswell. I've participated in many Anzac Day and ceremonies and memorials, and as Mayor, I've laid wreaths on all those types of occasions. I've been very proud to speak as Mayor of the City of Subiaco in front of that memorial on Anzac Day and Remembrance Days. In short, I've got an appreciation and respect for those who have served and those who continue to serve. If there was any disrespect intended to the memorial or any disrespect detected, that aspect of the design would have been weeded out a long time ago. What I would assure you is that to the extent possible from a redevelopment of this kind, the memorial will in fact be given a greater prominence than it currently has, and it will be celebrated and given the respect it is due as part of any redevelopment of the precinct, however the final precinct may look. So please, let's keep talking about the amount of hard services. Let's keep probing that as a community. Let's talk about the preferred use of the Rankin Gardens that this community would like to see. That's all healthy engagement. It's all the purpose of the community consultation process. But I can truly say or give you an assurance in the strongest possible terms, to the extent it's possible for someone in my position to give such an assurance, is that the memorial's role in this community will not be compromised in any way as part of the final precinct redevelopment. Your question 2, please.
Why does the city consider it appropriate to spend millions of dollars on redeveloping Rankin Gardens into this outdoor event space when there are outdoor event spaces already at Subiaco Theatre Gardens, 290 metres away, already set up with a stage, access to toilets and car parking and plenty of lawn? And also at Market Square, 1,100 metres away, which is already in use as an outdoor event space.
Thank you. Another good question. Director Corporate Services, if you could answer the second question, please.
Yeah, thank you for your question, and through you, presiding member. So as we've kind of covered, Rankin Gardens, it certainly is a special place in the heart of Rockaby Road, and at the moment we're just out to community consultation. So like we said, we've got an initial concept out. We really want to hear from everybody about what they want to see in the gardens in the future. We're really keen to hear from as many people as possible as to how they would like the space to be used. Just in terms of the spaces that you mentioned, the Subiaco Theatre Gardens Amphitheatre is, just for noting, currently leased to the Arts and Culture Trust, and Market Square, being 20,000 square metres, is quite different to Rankin Gardens in size and function, so we wouldn't envisage, the sort of scale of what's going on at Market Square couldn't feasibly be done in Rankin Gardens in any case.
Thank you. The final 2 questions for this evening were submitted by Gary Kosovich of Olive Street, Subiaco. Mr. Kosovich is not present, but I understand he's arranged for Mark Tonti of Salisbury Street to ask his questions. Thank you, Mr. Tonti.
I'll try and do that. Mayor, Councillor CEO and staff, just let me make the following comment. I think it's appropriate to say that there's been a lot of work done to get a civic centre on the site without changing the actual footprint of the site. I think that's absolutely fantastic that Council's actually done that. As a bit of background, so the two questions that I have two questions. One's dealing with the building and the other's dealing with the museum. So the first question is, there is a concern, however, in the community that the Subiaco Civic Centre would be a bloated admin centre with cursory community facilities. So the question is there any factual basis to these claims? That's the first question. The second question, you want me to give you the second question?
Look, I think the answer to at least one of these questions is pretty brief, so maybe just ask the two questions and then we'll give you two answers. Thanks for checking.
The second question relates to the museum, and there is some discussion about where the museum might be and what it might provide and how it might do that. So the second question is there any suggestion that by continuing the museum services at the current substation site, that the museum may not meet future needs with service delivery?
Thank you for both of those. Ms Wollaston.
Yep, sure. Thank you for those questions, and through you, presiding member. So, question one. So the building, it's based on a design brief, which provides adequate floor space for current staffing levels. So that includes staff currently based in one of the city's investment properties in Bishop Street. Moving staff out of that investment property will enable it to earn an income. So in terms of community facilities, we've spent considerable time working with elected members around this aspect. Over various workshops, we've considered things like outcomes of various prior community consultations, the utilisation levels of our current community facilities, feedback from community users, population growth, and best practices in relation to community facilities. So this was really to ensure that the design brief for the architectural tender for this project reflected the principles that Council wanted to underpin these facilities. In March 2024, Council decided to proceed with a tender for an architect based on that initial design brief. So we're currently progressing the resolution from that meeting also to program community consultation process following the selection of an architect, and the consultation has been open since mid-November, and I've said it a few times, we're really keen to hear from the community as what they'd like to see in future community facilities in the building. And it currently includes a community hub, an exhibition space, and a council chamber that can also be used by the community. So the city is really keen. One of the principles has been to make the building work hard to serve the diverse needs of our growing and evolving population. In relation to the question around the museum, there's no suggestion that the museum may not be able to continue effectively from its current site.
Thanks, Ms Wollaston, and thanks for everyone who submitted questions and joined us this evening. Okay, there were no public statements submitted for tonight's meeting. There were no approved petitions or deputations. Therefore, councillors, I'll ask you to confirm minutes of previous meetings. There's a single set, being those for the ordinary council meeting of the 25th of November 2025. Do I have a mover and a seconder to accept those minutes? Councillor Pine, thank you. Councillor Powell. Okay, I'll put that to the vote now. Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Time for announcements by the presiding member. We've lost a significant proportion of our audience, about 60% of tonight's audience, I think, but there's two people from Salisbury Street who we can always count on. Look, councillors, it's the last OCM of the year, so I just want to thank you all for your continued diligence and your continued attendance at council meetings and all the workshops and all the emails and discussions that occur between meetings. There's just a couple more city events left this year. Of course, the annual electors meeting is occurring this Thursday here. We're looking forward to being joined by a few friends from the community at that meeting. And my final formal engagement for the year will be to launch the Sunset at Subi concert series, beginning with a Christmas concert at Lake Julbup, one of my favourite duties as mayor, and one which I hope I'll see a few people from the community at. So, there's not a lot I need to announce tonight. Anything further can be covered at the annual electors meeting. We'll move straight to the officer reports. Councillor Pine, you've got your hand up for some reason.
Just one question. Do we have people online that we need to also acknowledge that are actually listening to this meeting?
Not that I'm aware of. If you mean, are there any staff joining us online?
Any members of the public?
10 viewers. Yeah, we don't usually acknowledge people on YouTube, but thank you for the question. Okay, councillors, there's a number of items that are potentially able to be carried on block. At the moment, we've got 4 items that are not the subject of any special voting requirements or amendments or alternatives. So I'll tell you what they are and we can work out whether to pull them from on block or not. The possible on block vote that I've got in front of me would consist of items C1, C2, C3 and C5. Councillors, does anyone want to remove any of those items from the on block vote? So that's C1, C2, C3 and C5. Computers and laptop replacement. Okay, councillors, the on block vote would consist of items C1, C2 and C5. If everyone's happy to vote on those items on block, I will look for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Jones and Councillor O'Connor, thank you. I will put the on block item to the vote now. Thank you. Items C1, C2 and C5 are carried on block, which means that they're carried as per the officer recommendations in the published agenda. And now we have saved ourselves a bit of meeting time. There's 2 items left to debate. We'll go straight to C3, the request for quotation on computers and laptop replacement. Pulled from on block, no special voting requirements, and an officer recommendation as per the agenda. Do I have a mover and a seconder for C3, councillors? Councillor Jones moving, Councillor De Vries seconding. Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. It's the industry norm to replace PCs every 3 to 4 years, and given that most of the PCs currently being used by staff were purchased around 2022, it's no surprise to learn that staff are starting to experience issues such as poor battery life and slow performance. It's therefore an appropriate time for the City to be considering the replacement of these devices. By replacing the fleet at this time, the City will minimise the number of different types of devices which need to be managed. This makes IT support much more straightforward by creating a standardised environment, which in turn has helped to ensure that the City can maintain a high level of IT security. The City has been able to take advantage of the State Government's Common Use Agreement and Walga's Preferred Supplier Arrangement to have access to pre-vetted vendors, ensuring that only trusted vendors are able to submit proposals. Of the submissions received, officers have assessed that Dell Australia has demonstrated the best overall value. Their devices are fully compatible with the City's existing IT infrastructure, meaning that there will be minimal disruptions to operations as the new devices are rolled out, and they offer comprehensive service arrangements, so we can be confident that staff will always have the tools available to do their work. I support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor De Vries.
The reasons provided for needing to begin the purchase of these computers and the reasons given were clear. I think that it's necessary for staff to begin that process as outlined by Councillor Jones. I believe that we have sufficient information in the report to make our decision based on that. Personally, I feel that this is an operational matter and I'm very grateful that we've had the opportunity already to discuss it, and the staff already provided a fully comprehensive set of reasons for it, and I was satisfied that those reasons
were sufficient for me to support this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any speakers against? Your pause makes me think you've got a question, Councillor Burns. Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor McMullen. My question relates to something I asked at the briefing, which was to do with washing the computers that are exiting with the intention of replacing them. I did see briefly some information that only today I had my attention drawn to, with the answer to the question being that how they were, that they're washed safely, in essence. My question last week was, how could we wash them? Because there was several questions asked pertaining to donating them to worthy causes as opposed to passing them to a for-profit enterprise. And I don't seem to have had that answer, is how would we do it if we wanted to wash them as opposed to just passing it on to somebody else. I do not believe in this day and age that washing these things is is rocket science. So if I could have that fully answered, so that I could make my mind up, I'd appreciate it.
I think we'll have to ask the Director of Business Improvement for advice on that. I don't see the Manager of Information Services here this evening.
Yeah, thank you, and through the Mayor. The short answer is we don't have the resources or the tools to be able to do this washing of the laptops and desktop devices in-house. The most efficient way for us to undertake this activity would be to outsource it.
Yeah, so perhaps I can just sort of clarify that, Councillor Burns, in terms of...
I'll just carry on if you don't mind.
Okay.
I understand. My question is
Okay, there's a follow-up question.
Yeah. My question's this. Okay, I understand we don't have it, but if I can buy it on the internet for $50 and plug it into each computer and wash them, okay, it's fine by me. This is we live in an age of technology. This is not rocket science. Okay, we don't have what it takes. My question is, what does it take and what would it cost to acquire it, okay? And plug it into each one of these so that we could wash them effectively. I can assure you, or at least I would presume, right, that this is not 20 years ago where to make these things safe is rocket science. So I'm not looking for, we don't have it. My question last week, and you've had a week to provide it, is what is it? What did it cost, okay? And to do this.
CEO.
Yeah, thanks. I don't have the exact costs in front of me. This relates to what happens after this tender. So the tender relates to the acquisition. We have a process in place where at the moment we outsource that. When we talk through the budget with elected members in the lead up, we sort of articulate how many staff we've got for the services that we've got, and we...
let him finish. Councillor Burns, I'm chairing this meeting. Let him finish.
Okay.
Let him finish. Let the CEO finish. Sure. Well, you might get your answer if you let him answer it. CEO.
So that process would still be to happen, and we would need probably additional staff. What we can do is we can calculate that. We can compare that because we've asked for some additional information in terms of what the extra cost would be then to donate them because of the manner in which we've got this. So we've got a little bit of information on that. But what we could do through the budget process would be to describe the additional FTE that might be required to be needed, what that's likely to cost, the tools, etc., and we could compare that with the price that we have for the outsourced version of that. So we can provide that through the budget process. It doesn't impact on this tender itself because it's the manner in which we dispose of, but we could provide that through the budget process to determine whether or not we employ additional staff or whether that continues to be outsourced.
Thank you. Look, it's a pretty thorough answer, Councillor Burns, and I think we're straying it. Let me finish what I'm going to say to you. we're talking about a tender. You've heard a thorough answer. We don't have a dollar value. So the reason why we don't have a dollar value is because that's not the exercise we're doing at the moment. Your next question, Councillor Burns.
All right. My question is this then. You're going to do it. Okay, well, that probably doesn't relate. But I asked a question a week ago. That's the whole point of agenda briefings. Okay, so I could have the information. You might not think it doesn't relate to this item. I think otherwise. Okay, so I see little point of having agenda briefings if a simple question doesn't get answered, gets ignored, and just says, yes, we can wash it. I pretty much got that last week. Okay, so I'll just take it for everybody. The question's not been answered. I clearly asked it. It was said it could be provided, and it hasn't been, and I have difficulty moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, let's move forward. Any other questions? Councillor Johnston.
Yes, thank you, and through you, Mayor. I was just wondering, with outsourcing the washing of computers, how do we ensure confidentiality? Thank
you. Councillors, I'm struggling with the idea that we're drilling down into the washing of old devices in relation to a award of tender for the replacement of new laptops. This is detail which, whatever the answer is, doesn't have a bearing on the outcome of tonight's vote, I don't think. But look, I'll pass on the question, but I just really want us to stay on track with this. CEO.
Yes, in relation to what is done after these are purchased, and we have a contract in place, so it's the business who we've sourced, and their reputation relies on them being able to deliver that service in accordance with the contract, which means the confidentiality associated with that. If they were deemed not to be able to deliver in that way, their business would end pretty quickly, and we'd be using an alternate provider. Or, as we could through the budget process, provide information on how we could insource, as we do with every service. We can insource it or outsource it. It's just a conversation through the budget process as to whether or not we employ additional staff, or, so for example, we do waste, collect waste. A lot of local governments outsource that to, say, Cleanway or others. It's the same process for every service that we do.
Thank you, CEO. Is there a follow-up question, Councillor Johnston?
Thank you.
Councillor Fife.
So given the discussion that we've just had and what the CEO suggested is that this is about acquisition, not about disposal, can we be assured that we get a chance to discuss the disposal before they are disposed of? Because I got the impression that it was inherent within the acquisition that passover of the old computers was going to happen, but it seems that we would like to consider the use of how that happens prior to that going ahead. Is that fair to ask that?
CEO.
Sorry.
Yeah, thanks. Of course. We have a good process by where elected members are provided opportunities for which they can say they want an elected members briefing on further information through the EMIB. We can certainly do that, and in the lead up, we don't have to dispose of these before we deal with this matter. We've got some initial advice on the donation side of things, but we haven't calculated how much FTE and that sort of stuff. So a little bit of work to be done.
Seems pretty clear. Thank you. Any other questions? Otherwise, I think we're up to speakers against the officer recommendation. Councillor Burns. Okay, speaker against. Okay, we'll take any final speakers for or against the officer recommendation.
Procedural motion.
Procedural motion, okay. Councillor Burns.
I'd like to move to the next item of business, so to see this come back in February. I'll need a code number, and I'm sorry I don't have it in front of me. I apologise for that. I think it's in the sevens.
No, you've got a pretty good memory, but you don't need to remember that. Okay, if there's a seconder for the procedural motion, Councillor Burns, I think you can speak to the procedural motion if you wish. There's no debate otherwise on a procedural motion, so I'll be looking for a seconder for the procedural motion, and the CEO's got the meeting procedures out. Procedural motion under Rule 7.1A that the meeting proceed to the next business. Seconder for the procedural motion. Okay, well, it looks like the procedural motion lapses, so we will continue with the debate. Look, if there's no more speakers to the item, I think I can ask the mover to close. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's give the staff the tools to do their job.
Thanks, councillors. I'll put the item to the vote now. Okay, the item's carried 8-1. The next item is C4, the annual report and audited annual financial statements for 2024-2025. There's an absolute majority voting requirement for this one. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation to accept the annual report inclusive of the annual financial statements? Thank you. Councillor Burns moving. Councillor Jones seconding. Councillor Burns.
Nothing. There's my support.
Thank you. Councillor Jones.
I'll say something just to keep it going. Under the Local Government Act 1995, we, like all other local governments, are required to prepare an annual report, including the audited financial statements for the year, which informs the community about the performance of the city over the past year. The results show that the city's finances are in a strong position. Revenue outcomes are better than expected, driven by increased activity across our car parks, strong membership growth at Lords, and favourable interest returns. At the same time, expenditure was carefully managed, with employee costs and operational projects coming in under budget. Together, these outcomes demonstrate prudent financial stewardship and a commitment to delivering value for our community. It's important to see that the Office of the Auditor General has issued an unqualified opinion confirming that our accounts are accurate, transparent and prepared in line with all legislative requirements. This shows the community that they can be confident that the report paints a true picture of the city's performance. I note that we've also updated the value of the city's assets through professional revaluations, ensuring our statements reflect fair value and provide a true picture of our financial position. This transparency is important not only for compliance, but also for building trust with our residents. Beyond the numbers, the annual report highlights the progress we've made in delivering services and projects over the past year and sets out our plans for 2025-26. It shows how we are working towards the community's vision while supporting local businesses, investing in infrastructure and maintaining the character and vibrancy of Subiaco. Accepting this report is an affirmation of our city's strong governance, responsible leadership and commitment to sustainability. It demonstrates that we're managing resources wisely while continuing to invest in the future of our district. I commend the motion and encourage you to see this report as a reflection of the city's ongoing dedication to serving our community with integrity and excellence.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Fife, question, please.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. I was just looking at the cash and the investments that we've got in growth funds. I was just wondering whether or not the component of interest at $5,091,000 was a combination of earnings from both of those, and I'd just like some clarity on what the interest rates were in comparison to the growth fund. I can't see any distinction there between earnings from either of those assets.
Okay, I note we do have the Manager Finance Services in the room. Did we want advice from the manager, Ms. Wollaston, or shall we ask for director level advice? I'm happy to take an answer from either. Okay, the manager, Lauren Fitzgerald, thank you.
Thank you for your question, and through you, Mayor. So the investment return from our fund with Aware isn't in interest revenue. It's actually within other revenue. It's considered a distribution, not interest earnings. So it's in a different line to your question there. But our our interest earnings on our term deposits, which is most of our cash that we have invested through various financial institutions, mainly the big four banks, averaged around about 4.2% interest rate.
Councillor Fife.
So just as a follow-up question, whilst they're in other revenue, what were the earning percentages on the growth fund?
Another one for the manager. Thank you.
Thank you for your question through you, Mayor. I don't know the exact percentage, but the value that we got was 480,000.
Sorry, a bit of discussion about the figure there.
So
Ms. Fitzgerald.
the cash value that we got, so the distribution amount that we received from Aware was 480,000. I don't know the percentage of what that was.
Right, Director Corporate Services.
Okay, sure. So there's a couple of reasons why it's tricky. One is because we kind of invested the tranches of the funds that we invested over time over the course of the year, and that was partially to mitigate market timing risk. And so in terms of how long each portion of that money was in the market for and what that yield therefore relates to, it's kind of just tricky to work out the yield. But we have 7.755 in the Aware Fund. That's the value of the assets in that fund at the moment. So you can kind of get an idea of what the return it's a reasonable return on that overall.
Thanks for the answer, but I still got no idea on what the earnings rate of that Aware Fund is on an annual basis. And that was the intent of the question. So I understand that tranches have been put at various times and it's been acquired over successive periods. I'm trying to get an understanding of the relative returns from long-term deposits versus such a fund.
Ms. Williston.
Yep. So the fund targets long-term returns of a bit over 7% per annum, and it's kind of based on what it's historically achieved as well. There is information available on their website in terms of, and that they did issue to us in terms of the specific return for the last financial year. I just don't have it on hand at the moment, but I believe it was a pretty reasonable year. You've got it. Okay.
The CEO's got it. Mr. Cameron.
Thank you. Yes, if you go to, see, anyone can Google it, Aware Super Class B is the investment funds, and we have purchased what's called the Growth Fund. You can actually do the period ending, which is what I've just done, so June 2025. If we had had it right from the start of the year to the end of the year, that 1 year would have been 11.62%. But if I was to say, if we were to purchase it in November, the year has dropped down to 8.66. So it does vary quite a bit depending upon when you purchase it. But if you go, as I said, if you just Google Aware Super Investment Fund Class B, all the rates there are for 1 month, 3 month. The financial year to date is 4.2%. So, but we're looking back last year as of June, which was, if we had been in for the full year, it would have been 11.62%.
Okay, any other, questions or if not speakers? Speaker 4. Okay, Councillor De Vries, thank you.
Yes, the annual report and audited annual financial statements. I support the officer's recommendation to accept these, and I think the annual report itself reflects well on the work of the administration and council. For me, importantly, the Officer of the Auditor General has issued an unqualified audit opinion confirming that the financial statements are based on proper accounts and records and fairly present the city's financial outcomes. The financial results demonstrate sound financial management with both revenue and expenditure outcomes presenting favourably against the adopted budget. Variances are clearly explained, including those relating to timing of capital works, staffing vacancies, interest revenue and asset depreciation. The 2024 to 2025 annual report provides a strong and reassuring reflection of the city's new strategic direction under the Council Plan 2025 to 2035. I particularly welcome how the annual report has been structured through the lens of the 5 strategic pillars. This approach clearly demonstrates continuity between past delivery and future goals, and also helps the community to understand how day-to-day services, capital projects and strategic investments contribute to a longer-term vision for Subiaco. Overall, the annual report gives confidence that the city is well positioned to deliver on the Council Plan 2025 to 2035 with a clear sense of purpose, continuity and momentum. For this reason, and noting the legislative requirement for acceptance by absolute majority, I support the officer recommendation to accept the 2024-25 annual report and audited annual financial statements. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other speakers before I ask the mover to close? Okay, Councillor Jones, did you want to close? Oh, no. Sorry, Councillor Burns. I don't know. Look, it's up to you if you want to close or not, Councillor Burns. I don't know if you can really let someone else close for you. So I think I'll put it to the vote. So thank you, everyone. All right, thank you, councillors. C4 is carried unanimously, therefore satisfying the absolute majority voting requirement. C5 was carried on block. There were no elected members' motions notified prior to the meeting, and as far as I'm aware, there's no urgent business. There's no confidential items this evening, therefore I declare the Ordinary Council meeting closed at 6:20 p.m. Thank you as always, councillors. Thank you, staff, for another good year of OCMs. Thanks, everyone.